Hello, my name is Ross Jacobson, and this is my Capstone project presentation. For my project, I created a mobile app that I call Productivity Pro, and it's essentially an all-in-one productivity app that offers a simple, integrated, and highly functional environment that's designed to help users get more done. So the idea for this app came from recognizing the problem that there are so many digital productivity tools in existence, especially in app form, from calendars, notes, checklists, reminders, tasks, schedulers, etc. And there's so many of these tools that they're often not well integrated with one another. I recognize this in my own personal use of these tools, where I'm often using one tool over here, another tool over here, and often found myself wishing that they were built together into one single interface so that they could be fully integrated and easier to use together. So often these separate tools are isolated from each other, they do not integrate well, and the user is left managing each one separately. The other part of the problem is that often the interfaces to these tools are more complex than they should be, which has a negative effect on the user because they require time to learn the interface when the user's goal for using the interface is to save time. So the solution identified to this problem is, to give it a definition here, a software platform that integrates a high level of functionality for multiple productivity tools, all within one simple, easy to use interface. So the goal is a user experience that minimizes complexity and is customizable to the unique needs of individual users. And the challenge here is to balance the high level of functionality and complexity with having so many productivity tools within one interface, balancing that with a simplistic, usable interface that effectively meets user needs and goals. So the dev environment for this project, I decided to build an iOS app, and there are a couple of reasons for that. Number one, because I use iPhone personally, and so most of the productivity tools I've experienced and used and tested are iOS apps. And so I was interested in learning how to build one myself. I'd also never worked with the Apple ecosystem at all, and so I wanted to just find out how it was designed, find out how Apple this does their app design for their platforms. And so um, my first time ever learning it, and I just dove into it. So Xcode is the environment that Apple has created for developing, testing, and distributing apps for all of their device platforms. So that's iPhone, iPad, Mac, Apple Watch, etc. So I built my app for iOS, but the nice thing about having doing your development in Xcode is that you can scale very easily to other Apple platforms, even developing for multiple of them at the same time. So my iOS app could easily scale to iPad OS, to Apple Watch OS. And then Swift is the Apple programming language used within Xcode for development for all Apple apps across all Apple platforms. Um, so it's their own language, very similar to other languages, um, but was took a little bit to get used to the syntax. And Swift UI is the set of tools that's used with Xcode and Swift to build high quality user interfaces. It's basically the tool set that you're going to use to create the elements that will show up on the screen. All right, so some more development considerations. A big decision I had to make was what database to use for the app. And there's a lot of options out there, a lot of good options. But the one I settled on was Google Firebase and Cloud Firestore. So Firebase is a mobile app and web development platform by Google, which is built to host database authentication, cloud messaging, and integration services for a wide range of applications and environments. Provides application SDKs and support for cross-platform development. The setup is really easy and the initialization is really easy. There's a lot of documentation, very many use cases for Firebase, and there's a large developer community. So those are really the reasons I ended up deciding to use this for my database. So Cloud Firestore is the flexible NoSQL cloud database that's provided by Firebase to offer hosting for user management, authentication, cloud messaging, and push notifications. So my app is connected to a Firestore database, which is just stored in the cloud. This makes it super easy to run the app anywhere from any device. Um, and it's a NoSQL cloud database, which means it's leveraging JSON-based key value data storage in the real-time cloud environment. So super easy to manage the data, to read the data, um, really easy to work with. From my experience, the installation was simple. It's relatively lightweight for what I'm using it for, easy to integrate in the Apple platform, um, and it provides high scalability and syncing capability. So that's why I decided to go with it. All right, so let's jump into the app design. We'll start out with the login and account creation pages. So this is where the app will go for a new user who's new to the app. If they have an account already, they can log in. Otherwise, they can navigate to the create an account page where the user will enter their name, email, and password. And this will, assuming they've entered those fields correctly, it will create a new user in the Firebase database, in the Cloud Firestore database, and give it a unique user ID. Um, and that user is authenticated within the database using their password and unique email. Once the user has an account, they can log in and then they will remain logged in um, when they open the app after that. And the app entry will skip from the login page and go to the next page, which is the home screen or dashboard of the app. So this is really um, the core feature of this app, and it's designed in such a way to just provide all the essential information at a glance to the user. There's a lot of tools designed to be in this app, but this is really the page where the user can see just a simple overview of the information for the current day that they're on. So the design is modular. It's using a widget style design, and it's key to the simplicity and usability of the interface by presenting essential information to the user at a glance while abstracting the detailed functionality of the app away from this entry point to the app. Um, and then you can see at the bottom, there's 5 main menu options. So this is the home page. The next one is the to-do list creation page, which presents a list of tasks that can be created by the user. So there's a little plus button at the top there where users can um, open up a pop-up menu to create a new item to add to their to-do list. So they can complete the fields for the title and the date and the time, which will be stored in the database associated with the current user, added to a collection in the database of items. So if they hit save, it will save to the database, and then it will present it in the to-do list item view, which is scrollable and allows each item to be checked off by the user as it's completed. And in addition to checking them off, users can also delete the items as they go, just by swiping right to delete them. The third tab in the main menu is the calendar page, which is another very important part of the app. Basically, just provides, um, first of all, just a calendar view that the users can scroll through and navigate from month to month and day to day and year to year. Um, it's designed to allow users also to see all of the events and to-do list items and goals that they've set for a particular date as they're navigating through the calendar. Um, so the functionality is a little bit limited in the current iteration of the development, but ideally the user would be able to open up each day individually and see a list of all their events and create new events and add new items. Um, so this is an example of how the to-do list items view is integrated with the calendar view, so that when you create a to-do list item, it adds it to the calendar, and you can also create a to-do list item from the calendar. All right, so the next two items on the main menu are the notes page and the goals page, which are not fully developed currently. Um, but they provide two important productivity tools that are also designed to be integrated with the calendar and to-do list for the user. So the notes page allows users to create and organize notes, which is a key part of the design, um, in allowing the user the ability to assign notes to a particular day so that these would also show up in the calendar and then also show up in the daily dashboard view on the home page. The goals page similarly allows users to set goals for themselves, give them dates, give them times, and then track their progress over time. Um, similar to-do list items, but with greater functionality and customization for the user. There's also a profile page um, on the top of the main menu that the user can navigate to. Very simple interface, just displays the basic user information. They can set a profile picture. It allows a logout option, which disconnects the current user from the app, along with their associated data and returns to the app login screen. But it does make sure that the data is saved so that if the user logged back in, all of their data will be there still. Um, you'll just fetch it from the database at each login. Settings page, not fully functional currently, but it is designed to allow the user to customize their notification settings for basically everything within the app, for their tasks, for their notes, for their goals, for their events. They can enable push notifications if they wish to. Um, Settings page also provides user preferences, for example, light mode and dark mode, switching between the two, and then just a couple links to external resources for the app, such as documentation or frequently asked questions. Another big part of the app is error checking, which is you don't really notice on the surface how big of a part of the app it is, but in the back end, there's a lot of error checking that has to be done just because of how many input fields exist within the app and because of how many times the user is entering information. So the login screen provides a good example of that, where the user fields are checked to make sure that the email address and the password are valid. Um, the to-do list item creation is another example where the user has to put in a title, they have to put in a date that is greater than or equal to the current date. They can't put in a past um, item on their list. So the error checking just serves to account for user error and mistakes, but it also helps ensure security of the field entries. And it ensures that users know when they have made a mistake by providing concise error messages. That's a big part of the usability of the interface, is making sure that whenever the user does something that's not accepted by the fields, that they know what it is and know how to fix it. All right, so I'm going to just go through a brief demo of the app here, just to kind of demonstrate mainly just the to-do list creation aspect of the app. All right, so as a new user, I'll go ahead and go to the create an account page and create a new account with my email password. To create an account will log us in. So here's the home page. Up here's the profile where we could log back out and log in with another account or the same account. Um, so here's the to-do list page, and I'll just go ahead and create a new item just to demonstrate this. So we could add the title, we could just set a random date, we can select the time, we save that to the to-do list, so display it there. We can check it off when it's done. We can add another item, set the time, save it to the list. Um, so I'll go over to the database and refresh this. So here's the authentication settings. So we can see that this new user was created and authenticated when I created the account. And then if I go into the Firestore database, we can see those users, the current users in this collection with their unique user IDs. So it looks like here's the user I just created. These are my fields for email and ID, the date I joined, my name, and then here's the collection of to-do list items. So basically, they also have a unique ID, and then they have their fields for the date I set, the date they were created, the state, if they're done or not, which means if they're checked or not, and then their title. So that's just a quick overview of just how the back end looks. Really simple, straightforward way to organize the data. No SQL, just all text value fields. So back in here, I could also delete items if I'm done with them. I'll just empty out the list. Um, And then again, here's the calendar where they would ideally show up on the day that they're created for. Same with the home view. All right, so back here, keep going. All right, so just to summarize some of the development process, a few things that went well, I thought, were number one, learning Xcode, Swift, and Swift UI was a little bit of a daunting task at first, but I quickly learned that it's really just another language, just another development environment, very, very similar to other environments and languages I'd used before. There's a lot of documentation and tutorials out there, so that went well. I feel, even after just making this one app, I feel comfortable with using Swift, much more comfortable than I did prior to building this. Um, Along with that, learning Firebase as well was also very, very straightforward, very easy. Again, there's a lot of documentation. Installation was fairly straightforward. I ran into a few errors after installation, but the initial setup was pretty simple. And then I thought the overall layout of the front end design of the app was also very successful. I think I kept it as simple as possible. I think I achieved at least what I was envisioning for um, kind of abstracting the tools out of the home screen and presenting a very um, keeping the tools simple, but also just abstracting them from the main dashboard so that users could just have a quick view of all their information from one point without having to use separate tools. Then just a couple things that were difficult in the development process. The user login and account validation. It was less difficult than time consuming. It took a lot of time to make sure that the authentication was working in the database. But I also just thought it was important for full functionality of all the other data storage because the app does store every single piece of user data as a collection in the current user. So that's a way to authenticate and to secure the data. And then another thing that was difficult was just the backend logic and functionality, especially for the management of data across pages in the app. That was something I had to get used to, how classes are built, how they're managed within Xcode and Swift. Um, and then troubleshooting and fixing errors. Um, you never really know what errors might come up when you're programming, and I definitely ran into some big ones that took a lot of time out of the development process. There was a point where I had to like reinstall the entire database because I couldn't fix one particular issue. Um, so that's to be expected, but there were definitely some errors, definitely some troubleshooting that had to take place. And then just to note some next development steps, things I would do if I had more time. Definitely enhance the functionality of the calendar page in particular, to expand event creation options for each day, and just to offer more ways that the user could view the calendar layout and customize it. Definitely just greater customization features in general, especially to the home page slash dashboard page, so that they could change it to meet their needs and just their desire for how it looks and how it presents information to them. Um, and then, like I mentioned before, develop the notes page and the goals page to finish up the functionality of those two tools, so that notes can be saved to the database and have full integration of the calendar. And the goals can also be saved to the database and allow tracking and presentation of user progress. Um, Ideally, some AI or machine learning algorithms would be employed to help track that progress and also to provide users with some tips and suggestions for how they can best meet those goals and stay on track. And also, another feature would be cloud sharing options so that multiple users could view and collaborate with one another's, basically with one another's app, so that they could see each other's calendars and to-do lists and perhaps edit them. Um, and then lastly, implementation of APIs to add location and weather data to calendar days and events. Um, Again, just another example of how extra tools would be built into this one interface so that users could look at their calendar and not just see their events in their to-do list, but also see the weather for each day, see the locations for their events and assign those locations when they create the events. The goal is to basically just provide as much functionality as possible within one place for the user. All right, and then just to finish up, a few points of advice for those who are about to do a big project like this. Number one is just to plan realistically for errors and time spent troubleshooting. Every programming project is going to have errors and it's going to require troubleshooting. It's just a guarantee that you have to spend at least some time doing that. So make sure to work it into your project plan. I think I didn't do that enough at the beginning, and so at the end of my development process was running into a lot of time, a big percentage of my time that I had to devote to just troubleshooting and researching issues. So just plan ahead for it and know that it's going to happen. And then secondly, work hard early and plan ahead. I think that's kind of self-explanatory, but I think it's easy to, at the beginning of a longer project, something that's 16 weeks where you have a due date that's pretty far in the future, it's easy to just focus on general concepts and kind of ideal designs at the beginning without actually implementing the design right from the beginning. So I think it's definitely good to start development as soon as you can and to keep iterating and building upon your design as you go. And then finally, I would say just challenge yourself. I didn't have any experience with Xcode, with Swift UI, with Swift, with using anything in the Apple ecosystem. I never developed for Apple at all. And so this was a great experience for me to improve my skills, to just to see how the same programming concepts that are present in every programming language environment were also within Xcode and within Swift. So it certainly strengthened my knowledge of those concepts, being able to see them in a different context. And now, after going through building an app in that environment, I have a new ability to build apps for Apple devices, which is really cool. So challenging yourself like that to learn new things is really the best way you're going to learn, the best way you're going to improve your skills. All right, thank you.